Hello there, and welcome along to episode 4 of season 3 of the Gardener Ben podcast, proudly brought to you in association with Peter Beals Roses, winner of 30 Chelsea Gold medals and proudly creating timeless roses since 1968. Shop online at www.peterbealsroses.com. We finally had our first kiss of air frost, and a horrible storm came in from the north, bringing cold wind and driving rain with it. So the temperatures have plummeted, meaning that the garden all of a sudden has changed gear. The autumn colour on the trees has finally flushed through, and everything is turning golden yellow and brown. The leaves have started falling like confetti. So you must make sure that you're keeping up with your lawn maintenance and keep the lawn clear of fallen leaves and debris. Otherwise you'll end up with terrible problems come the spring, with lots of moss setting in. It's incredibly difficult to do, especially when the conditions are wet underfoot, so you need to grab the opportunities as and when you can. I've been using the changing weather as an excuse to get on with some more DIY tasks around the cottage that don't involve walking around on the lawn or starting the autumn and winter clearances. We've had some building work done here at the cottage, which involved us laying quite an awful lot of armoured electrical cable. This unfortunately needed to be trench dug across the driveway and then across the path to the front door and ultimately be run into our electrical box. This looked like a huge task, and I've been putting it off for weeks and weeks on end, with us being driven mad by the fact the cottage looks so untidy with this black armoured cable flapping around across the driveway. I took matters into my own hands and finally got on with the task, and if I'm honest, it didn't take more than about 90 minutes to get the job done. I got the concrete breaker out and broke out the concrete in front of the cottage and inserted the cable beneath it. I just need to skim this over with a light and small amount of concrete to finish the job off, but it's really nice to have that area tidied back up so I can get on and plant my spring and winter pots by the front door now without tripping over the cable. Another small but significant job off the list, which always feels great to get done, is to get the garlic planted. This is a job that you normally need to do in October and November, and I had to get round to clearing a little bit of space in the vegetable and cutting garden to make way for my garlic cloves. If you don't have space, you can always pot them up into a 3-inch cellular pot or seed tray and plant them out whenever you're ready. However, it's best to get them started just as soon as possible, and they're really easy to plant. Now on this note, don't get tempted to buy yourself very expensive bulbs of garlic from your local seed merchants or garden centres. Bulbs of garlic that you have in the kitchen that may have gone over ever so slightly and started to sprout will be absolutely fine. You'll quite often find that garlic that's sprouted will be quite bitter when cooked with, so this makes a really good way of using it up and making sure you're not putting it to waste. It's incredibly easy and simple to grow. You just need a piece of small open ground which has been well worked and turned over and had a good layer of organic matter put into it in the last 12 months, preferably in full sun. Simply push the garlic cloves into the soil at a spacing of around 15 centimetres or 6 inches apart, just so the very tips of them are just under the soil surface. You'll find they sprout lovely green shoots within just a couple of weeks, and don't worry about them either. They're really tough and very hardy and will grow away quite happily all over the winter months and start making some decent sized bulbs come the spring. Now, if you cast your mind back to episode 1 of season 3, I promised you that I was going to have some absolutely amazing guests lined up for you. And once again, the Gardener Ben podcast is taking flight and crossing the Atlantic Sea, and I finally got to catch up with one of my favourite Instagram accounts. I've had a chat with Gracie from Grace Rose Farm, one of my favourite Instagram accounts that's got some massive changes going on right now, not only personally but also with the huge advancements being made with the business. I hope that you enjoy the conversation that follows. Well, today on the Gardener Ben podcast, I'm joined by an absolute titan in the rose industry over in America. I'm joined by Gracie from Grace Rose Farm. Welcome along to the podcast, Gracie.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled to be able to talk to you today.
This is a little bit of a dream come true. I'm gonna try not to fanboy too much because I've been following your beautiful account on Instagram for a very long time, and there's a lot for us to go through here today. So I hope you're sitting down comfortably. Gracie, for those that don't follow you, I mean, you have 264,000 followers on Instagram, so you have a massive footprint worldwide. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Well, I am an avid rose lover since I was a very, very tiny little girl. I grew up gardening with my grandmother in Southern California and tending to her roses and also my uncle's roses. And I just love the beauty, the nostalgia, the romance, the timelessness of garden roses. I think there is nothing more beautiful and that you can grow or give to someone than a garden rose. And I'm a gardener. I don't come from any botany or science background. I am not a pedigree in the breeding and collegiate, areas of plants and agriculture. I am literally just a gardener who found herself growing beautiful roses in California, and I developed a following for my roses. And I've been gardening all my life, but about 10 years ago, my husband and I planted a pretty large rose garden on our half-acre suburban backyard, and we had about 600 plants. And I started my little Facebook and my Instagram account called Grace's Garden, Grace's Rose Farm. And florists found me in Southern California, wedding florists. And
Hmm.
those wedding florists said, wow, I've never seen, roses quite like this. Do you happen to sell these? I would love to buy them for my bride for her bouquet. And I said, oh, no, 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 no. I had a pretty successful career in marketing at the time, digital marketing, and I traveled all over the country doing digital marketing. And the gardening was just my refuge. It was my calm, my safe place, my joy on the weekends with my husband. And it was something we found that we both really loved mutually. And after thinking about it, I said, well, maybe there's something to this, that these florists want these roses. So what the heck, I'll let them come over and take some roses. And very quickly, word got out that I had these gorgeous David Austin and roses and beautiful grandifloras and hybrid teas and all these spectacular colors for weddings. And we started our little wedding and event related supply business of garden roses in 2015.
And from there, it's grown and grown. So, I mean, the question that I've written down in
Yeah.
front of me, because I've been guilty of this in the past. How did it feel taking a hobby and a passion, something you described there as your sort of refuge, somewhere where you lost yourself and you were happy? How did it feel turning that into a commercial business and actually sort of running that on a commercial scale? Has that taken the shine off of things for you a little bit, or are you just sort of immersed yourself like and you're sort of wallowing around in your happy place and you're more than joyful all the time?
Yeah. Well, I'm a natural entrepreneur. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, and I'm not afraid of risk. I'm extremely open to taking risks and to putting it all on the line for something that I believe in.
Well, I
And
found I
so,
found I found life is much more fun when you say yes.
yes, yes, exactly. And I I I thought, I think life is short, and following your passion and your dreams. And I think for the roses in particular is that, like I started out this call, they are so beautiful. And to me, it's such an honor to be able to have a business that brings people joy, right?
Mm.
Like, of all the businesses in the world, right? Roses are they are the most beautiful thing you can possibly imagine, right? And we get to grow them. We get to send them to people, the cut flower bouquets, the plants. We get to be involved in people experiencing the same type of joy, the same type of healing that I've experienced through garden roses.
Yeah.
And so I just dove right in. And at this point, our business has evolved so much. We have, worldwide partners. We have so many different branches of our business that, it's no longer my husband and myself doing the gardening in our backyard. Those days are long gone, but we still reminisce about that, and we still long to get to a point where we have enough people helping us on our business so that we can go back to what we love so much, and that is growing the roses ourselves. And
Yeah,
we do some of it, but it's definitely become a bigger thing. And I've
yeah.
had to learn to embrace that and
Delegate
follow
and
my
let
heart
some of it
and my
go.
dreams.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've just touring my way through your website earlier. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you've knocked it on the head and stated that I say there's you're multifaceted. I mean, there's multiple arms to what you do. So there's the pot grown roses that you
Mhm.
sell. There's also rose
Mhm.
bouquets, and is there some sort of you run a subscription service as well? Is that correct?
We do. We do. We have subscriptions for bouquets, and we're actually launching in January of this year a brand new subscription program where it's going to be much more interactive. It's going to be a whole year of arranging with me virtually every single month and a new seasonal bouquet. And we're launching that for 2026.
That's
So that should be really
very
fun. That
exciting.
should be really fun.
And
Yeah,
when does the
I'm
first
excited
one of
about
those
it.
kick off?
I think it will probably be shipped before Valentine's Day. We're
Yeah,
going to start the marketing and start the storytelling of it, and then it'll run like Valentine's Day of 26 through 27.
wonderful.
Valentine's Day.
And
Yeah.
I have to ask, I mean, on the website you have a bestsellers collection, and obviously there's bestsellers within your bunches and obviously your potted roses. But for yourself, what are the best? What are your favourites, and why do you like them?
Well, I love pink roses. I'll be honest. I'm a definite pink girl. If you couldn't tell from our website, we are, we really lean into. I think more than any other rose brand, we lean into the romanticism, the fairy tale, the story of roses, and so we're very very feminine with our entire brand, and we tend to push and the most feminine roses, which are my favorite. So I love, many of David Austin's heavily petaled, beautiful roses like Evelyn and Jubilee Celebration. I love any roses that have a lot of petals and have a lot of fragrance.
Yeah,
Some of the Mayons, like Francis Mayon, and some of the Cordes roses like Parfuma Bliss. Another Mayon, it would be Bolero. I lean into the really romantic, uh, old style heritage roses,
yeah,
and I'm very unapologetic about how romantic and feminine our website is because our buyership is like 95% women.
yeah.
So I really feel positive about having that very pink and romantic look to our branding and our entire company. So
It's
yeah.
it's something that obviously I do now completely professionally. I mean, my account is tiny in comparison to yours, but I started, and my listeners have heard this before, but yeah, I'll explain it to you. I started my rose review process out of a little bit of frustration, bored of buying roses here in the UK and lilies
Mhm.
and other things like peonies that just did not, and dahlias
Mhm.
that did not look like I had envisaged them. When I looked at them on the internet, they simply didn't look like I was expecting them to look like. So I started my review
Yeah.
process very basically to try and capture the roses that I had in the garden and the ones that I wanted in natural light, outside wherever possible, and just very, very
Mhm.
basic media. It's me with the rose or me with a vase of flowers, and it's me talking about how the rose makes me feel and the emotions it stirs up in me. And then, of course, after a while of doing that, I amassed quite a large video library. And people started asking me, oh, what's your favorite? What's your favorite? So in 2021, I launched my first top 10, which I completely got wrong because I did it 1 through to 10. I got through 1 through 10, which means I gave all the information away at the very beginning of the video. So by the time 2022 came around, I'd become much better at the presentation of these things. But everybody always bullies me into what's your favorite, what's your favorite. And this year, because there are so many,
Mhm.
I've reviewed 81 roses alone in 2025. It's been a huge body of work I've created this year,
Wow.
taking me to about
That's an
300.
incredible. That's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. I
Do you know,
know that's a lot of work.
do you know, Gracie? It's a lot of words. I think that's the. It's an awful
Yeah.
lot. It's an awful lot of talking, and at some points I was doing 3 or 4 reviews a day. I got a little bit
Yes.
tongue-tied and a little bit, I mean, and very tired. I must have been very tired. Anyway, but long story short, I then thought, well, now I've now reviewed so many roses. How do I now put these into a body of work that actually makes sense, rather than it just
Mhm.
be my own
Mhm.
personal passion and how it makes me feel? How do I sort of defend that, and how do I say give that to my followers and say this, this is how I've graded this apart from my own passion. So I've started my own grading system from points, which has really turned
Hmm.
things around when it came to the top 100 that I did this year. And there's a lot of been movement and shaking around in the top 100 of the roses I reviewed, and that's been really, really interesting, taking it away from my own personal preferences, which again leans
Hmm.
towards more of these very whimsical, very fairy tale like, very
Hmm.
soft and pink
Yeah.
pastels, which I tend to like. And 1 or 2 stronger colors have come up because, again, they have great disease resistance, or they have a low thorn count, or they've got an exceptional fragrance. And some of these more ones that normally, because they don't really appeal to my personal taste, because they've got a strong or a powerful color, are normally lower down in the ranking. So this year's been a very, very interesting year for me. And 2026 is already lining up. There's, I think, already 35 or maybe 40 roses already lined up for next year. So it's going to be a big year for me next year as well.
Wow. You are going to be really busy. I think that you should get that published afterwards. I see a book. I see a beautiful book in your
Well,
future. I really do.
I have started writing one, and and obviously you have your own book as well, haven't you? Is yours called Garden Roses?
Yes, I
How did
do.
and
And I went into the book thinking, go ahead.
how did that come about?
Yeah. Oh, the book. So in 2019, I had several publishers contact me from New York and say they wanted to work with me on a book. And so I hired a literary agent in New York, and we looked at proposals and we looked at different offers, and we decided on a specific company, Artisan, and now they've been acquired by Hachette Books. And it was an incredible amount of work, I will tell you that. Writing a gardening book, when you are relying upon the product in the book, the photos of the roses, to be the standout, it took us 3 full years of photography to
Mm-hmm.
photograph that book. So, because the roses are never all in bloom at once. So my
No.
photographer would come into town and she would capture, you know, 25 varieties, right? And then the others wouldn't be blooming. And then she'd have to come back, the next bloom cycle, like 4 or 5 months later, and then try to get more. So it took a long time. It took us 4 years to publish that book. And I'm very proud of it. I love it. I hope to write another book, although the next book is going to be more of like a picture book and a lifestyle book and not
Mm-hmm.
so how to,
Yeah.
because that book was very, very intense on the writing side. So, but I love the book, and I think it's a classic. It'll never go out of style. It's one of those books that can be referred to for many, many years into the future. And I'm so glad I got to do it.
You won't.
It was a real honor to be able to do it.
Amazing. I'll have to get hold of myself a copy, because you may not have been able to, because you're obviously a very, very busy lady, but I've actually embarked on the same journey myself. And I have started writing a book. And I, at the very beginning of the process, engaged a local photographer, and he started his first
Yes.
photo shoots with me here in the garden. And we decided, I open my garden normally once every 2 years, and we were due to open the garden to the public this year. And I said, look, I'm going to be doing the book, so I can't have people traipsing all over it and picking things and taking up my time. I have to
Yeah.
focus on this project. So employed a local photographer who I get on really, really well with, got a lovely rapport with, and he was scheduled to do dates all the way through the summer. He came out twice, and we captured some photos. I think we captured about 350, not very many. Um, and unfortunately, then the summer became really turbulent. It started to rain. So the first flush of flowers here in the UK was absolutely destroyed by rain. And then the sun came out, and I thought, oh, this
Oh.
is going to be great. We'll have the second flush, and it'll be absolutely perfect. But then the heat came. And now these temperatures here in the UK,
Hmm.
you won't bat an eyelid at 28, 29, 30 degrees over there in California. But here in the UK, that's
Hmm.
really very hot. Our roses aren't used to that kind of stuff. Everything was just frying, and
Yeah.
the grass went brown here. The whole
Yeah.
garden went this horrible shade of
Oh.
sort of yellow. everything started to
Hmm.
just turn to
I
a bit of,
understand.
yeah, everything turned
Yep.
into a bit of sort
I
of crisp bread.
understand.
So we've only got really two
Yep. We
sessions
had a
done.
good.
No,
That's amazing. I know, just pace yourself and just know that it'll be when it will be. Mother Nature is the boss when it comes
yes,
to garden, right?
very
And
much so.
she'll supply what she wants to supply when she's ready. And going back to when Ryan and I were starting our business, we learned that very quickly. We would take pre-orders from florists for weddings, and then all of a sudden a big heat wave would come, 95 degrees, and then all the roses that we had planned for the weddings would be blown out. And we learned all about all of that very quickly. And it's, anything dealing with Mother Nature or perishables is really hard. It's a tough business. And it's a seasonal business, right? You don't produce roses over the winter, cut
No.
roses. And so we learned a lot about seasonality, Mother Nature, you know, heat and rain and frost. One year we had a freak accident. Frost came and wiped out our roses a month early, and we lost all that revenue that we were counting on for the end of our season to go into winter when we
Hmm.
didn't make any money, right? So it's a tough thing. And the bushes, they're really not any easier than the cut flowers. The bushes, there's all kinds of variables, with growing the bushes, and disease that can happen in the growing fields of the growers, or virus, and then the crop is not as good as you hope it's going to be good. So but it's so worth it, because again, I say roses are the most beautiful, positive, enchanting things that people can experience in their life, in the garden and around their home. And even with all the complexities and all the hard times we've had and the loss that we've had and the challenges, it's still so worth it to be able to offer roses for people.
It is, isn't it? It's and for me, I have regular Reiki sessions with a Reiki healer, a spiritual healer, and she she
Oh, nice.
often she often does a card reading or some sort of palm reading at the end of my session, and she says, "Ben, I see you with nothing but roses. There's roses all around you. I see you sat on a swing surrounded by roses as a child. As I just see roses. Like, well, you want to come to my house?" There's
Oh my
roses
gosh.
everywhere. I can't get rid of
Wow.
them. I can't get rid of them. And people say to me, "Oh, yeah,
That's
this month."
incredible.
People say it must be amazing that all these different suppliers send you all these different roses. It's like it is, but it's for someone who
Hmm.
has problems letting go of things. I mean, I love them all. I mean, I will find something positive and something inspirational and something emotional in every single rose that I'm in front of. I generally do love them all, and it's
Hmm.
very rare for me to give a rose a particularly harsh review. There's only been about five or six in the last 10 years that I've done that too, and I've always tried to do it in a positive way, because it's not if it's not something I like, it's something that somebody else might like. But yeah, I like them
Yeah.
all. So parting with them afterwards is really difficult, because obviously I can't keep them all. I've only got a third of an acre here at home. So yeah,
Oh,
I've
wow.
got about 300 plants in the ground, and any more, I'm now having to sort of remove items from my collection and swap them back out, because I can't keep them all. And next year there's going to be even more of them. So
I
I've
understand.
found a local charity. I'm going to be donating them all to a local community garden, the ones I don't need from this year. So
Amazing.
well, I thought it'd be nice to bring other people joy in a
Yeah.
public space. So yeah, that's where they're all going to be off to at the end of
Yeah.
this year.
That's incredible. That's what we do as well. I donate a lot of roses to like senior citizen homes, to churches, public gardens, like just things that I just don't have, the space or the time for. And then I also open up my farm and give away thousands of rose bushes to just our supporters, our followers,
Hmm.
because I can't keep them all.
No.
I just can't keep them all. There's just so many, and I'm always, in my position, my job is to look for new roses, find new roses, or find old roses that haven't gotten the attention that they need on the market,
Yeah,
and bring those to light, right?
there's plenty of
And
those that I've found that have fallen through the cracks,
oh,
especially if you look at
they're, yeah,
global worldwide events as well. I mean, for instance, obviously the last big one was COVID,
yes,
and here in the UK,
yes.
several really amazing roses were launched here in the UK during that window of time, and people's attention were obviously very normally, as you'd expect, they were elsewhere and everything was shut down. So there are
Hmm.
several roses that didn't get their time in the sun, which I've tried to sort of throw spotlight on them. But
Yeah.
again, people always want what's brand new, and I say to people, it's like, oh, we actually don't disregard things like the Rambling Rose Blush Noisette, which is bred in something
Yeah.
or other. It's a lovely one, and you'll find that some of these really good old roses actually make up the heritage of a lot of our now
Mhm.
very, very favoured modern roses. I mean, so don't disregard the parents, because there's some really wonderful old roses out there.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And in the United States, there are a few main producers of roses,
Hmm.
and I think in the horticulture industry, not many horticulture companies really do marketing very well. David
No.
Austin does.
Yeah.
I like to think that we do, but there are so many amazing roses that we're never the stories of them, and we're never told. The photography, is awful, right? Like, and so the consumer sees, a photo that is not a beautiful photo, and then they don't want the rose. But we get the rose, we experiment with it, we trial it, we see it, and we photograph it beautifully, and we tell the story of it, and we give new life to a rose that kind of would have just been discontinued. And
Yes.
so that's something that I'm really excited about doing, because there's so many amazing roses that were bred. They just haven't gotten a spotlight. Nobody's talked about them. And so, I feel like that's part of my duty, is to bring some of these roses that just have fallen to the wayside back into the market, and give them a new life. So
Great.
we're really
Gracie,
concentrating on that very hard.
Gracie, you sound very much like myself. I feel duty bound to sort of get in front of just as many as I can and share just as many as I can. I mean, I say there is very few, and people say, well, have you seen this rose? And they send me the name and a picture, and it's like, well, no, I haven't. And then you try and explain to people how many rose varieties they are worldwide, and there are tens of thousands of different varieties before you even go into the
Hmm.
unregistered sort of back home
Yeah.
hybridized roses. And last year on the podcast, I had the pleasure in speaking to Brad from Select Roses. He's up in Canada,
Yes.
British Columbia.
She's
He
lovely.
Unbe-
Amazing, amazing breeder.
Unbelievably just a beautiful soul as well, just a lovely guy to talk to.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be speaking to the team over at Heirloom Roses again on this season of the podcast as well. So I think I've covered pretty much all of the supply chain over there now. So yeah, there are very few of you, but you've got a very large market in front of you. So it is, yeah, it is that it does kind of lay at your feet to keep the market fed for what they need, because there's nobody else feeding it, really, is there? It's just about three or four of you, I think.
Yeah, there's not many, and I think one of the really kind of complex things is that we have very diversified climates here in the
You do
U.S.
it. You do
We've
indeed.
got
Yes.
I'm out here in Southern California, where roses just grow. You can basically turn your back on them and ignore them, and they flourish, right? We don't have
Yeah.
to do much here. We're in a Mediterranean climate. It doesn't freeze. We have very moderate temperatures all year. We only rain in the winter. And then you've got the deep south that, there's tons of humidity, and those people down there deal with a lot more bugs and a lot more disease. We've got lots of frost and killing frost up in the north. And so, with very diverse climates. So we actually have now on staff, we have two full-time horticulturists that work at Grace Rose Farm, which I'm incredibly proud of. They come to us with over 50 years combined horticulture expertise, and they are really helping me identify roses for this huge, diverse market in the United States.
Hmm.
I wish I could just, I know the roses that do well in California, but we're really trying to focus on everyone and identify roses that work for every single climate. And we're also only introducing roses to the market that have gone through 5 to 7 years of trials
Yeah.
in multiple areas in the country, in those key locations, Pacific Northwest, Southwest, Midwest, Texas, of course, huge market for us, the
Hmm.
Southeast, and then the Northeast.
Yeah.
And I hope that that's going to help set us apart, to really speak to people and say, we've got, I know you might have your heart set on this rose, but you live in the Southeast, and here's one that's going to work much better for you, and it's going to provide you with low maintenance, easy care, and it's going to give you beautiful flowers. And that's
Ex-
what we really want to help people with is,
ex-
is helping them
Exactly.
pick the best roses for themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that all the time, especially via my YouTube channel. That I get because obviously I'm here in the UK. I'm here with some of the largest breeders of roses in the world, where obviously where they herald from, and I get quite a lot of backlash on YouTube saying, "Oh, why do you feature, for instance, that rose in your top 20 or best of collection for growing in a container? I can't get that here." And I said, you can't, and I often
Hmm.
rebuff to people and say, well, you can't get it for a really good reason. One, it either hasn't gone through field trials in your region, which means it's
Yeah.
completely untested. It might not be
Yeah.
hardy enough, it might not stand up to the rain or the cold. And secondly,
Right.
if you could get hold of it and it failed, how would that leave you feeling? And then they sort of take
Right.
a step back and they go, actually, yeah, okay, well, point taken. It's like, well, when the rose is ready, I mean,
Hmm.
I get this much the
Hmm.
same when, for instance, Peter Beals or David Austin or Harkness launch a new rose here in the UK, and
Hmm.
I debut them here on my channels, and people from America say, well, I wish we could get here. It's like, again, it's not as easy as us just sort of sending you 3,000 roses. You can't do that. The bud stock's got to make its way over it.
Hmm.
Then got to go through its field trials. You've got to find the right root stock to put it on if you're not going to grow it on its own roots. And then once
Oh
you've
yeah.
taken it from one location, as you just quite rightly said, you've then got to grow it in about four, five, maybe six different locations across the continent to actually find
Yeah.
out which growing
Yeah.
zones it's actually suitable for. And I noticed that on your website that
Yeah.
you've broken that down very nicely into sections for people to, strong fragrances,
Hmm.
powerful colors,
Yeah.
hardy growing zones. All of those things are there. So your website's really easy to navigate and very much like I've set out with my YouTube channel, where I'm breaking things down into collections for
Hmm.
best for cutting or best for vase life or best for fairy tale collection.
Yeah.
All of those things that I've tried to break them down into, sort of bring them together in categories for people with different needs and different wants. So I think I mean, your website
Yeah.
is just beautiful. It's a feast for the eye. So you can see
Oh,
certainly that
thank
that's
you.
background in marketing and PR coming through that in spades. It's very, very, very pretty indeed.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's something I talk to on my Facebook group about all the time because everybody says, Gracie, we want more roses. We want more roses. And I say, look, this is the way it is. We're bringing in like around 50 varieties from Asian countries, European countries. The roses from Asia, they've got to go to Europe first, and they've got to be put into mini plants, and then those mini plants have to come here and sit in quarantine for 2 years before we can even start trials.
Yeah.
And so to get a new variety on the market, we're looking at 2 years of quarantine, 5 years of trials, at least 2 to 4 years of propagation and building up numbers. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
decade to
I
bring
know.
a new variety
And a whole lot
to
of money.
market.
A whole lot of money.
A whole lot of money, a whole lot of money. And so, in the meantime, while we're doing that, we are actively bringing over new varieties from breeders all over the world. But in the meantime, we're working with roses that are already here but may have not ever had the light shined on them in the past, right? And to help people discover roses that are right at their fingertips, but they just don't know about because nobody's ever marketed them properly. And I have a philosophy. I think that there's enough business for everyone. There's enough business for every player in the rose industry. And if we all work at bringing healthy roses to market, more people will be converted to roses, right? And so if people have a good experience with a rose from Grace Rose Farm, well, they'll go to Heirloom and buy a rose from Heirloom, and they'll go to David Austin. And so it's all of our responsibilities to bring only the best to market, because then we grow all together. We grow our base. And what Heirloom has, I may not have, right? And what I have, David Austin may not have. And so there's something for everyone, as
Yeah.
long as we're all concentrating on bringing only the best roses to give people a great experience, so they don't say, oh, well, I grew a rose and I'm never going to do it again because that thing died. I don't want to grow roses,
Well,
right? So
I
we have to set a good precedence
Yeah,
together, all of us.
I get those throwaway comments all the time, and I often rebuff and I say, well, okay, especially because this is more of a YouTube comment than it is an Instagram comment, I must admit. And it's like, I bought this because you said it was really good, and it's not very good. And you message back and go, okay, talk me through your process. How old is the plant? And they say, well, I bought it bare root, and it's been in the ground
Mhm.
for 6 weeks. And you think, Okay, come on,
Yeah.
cut it a break here. It's been grown in a field for 3 years. It's been ploughed out of the ground, put in a cold store container, then it's been shipped to you. You put it in a bucket of water, you planted it in the ground, and 6 weeks later, you
Yeah.
expect it to be
It
like it
hasn't even
is.
rooted. Hasn't even
Exactly.
rooted yet. It's 6 weeks.
And people say to me, well, the roses that you showcase are always so big and so healthy. Your blooms are massive or they're perfectly formed. And I say, well,
Yeah.
wait a minute, but slow this process down. This is not something that's going to give you instant gratification. A rose is a long-term investment.
Yeah.
It's not a bedding plant. It's not a begonia, for instance. It's going to take
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 years, especially in our climate, because it's obviously our growing
Yeah.
season is relatively short in comparison to yours. That actually you
Yeah.
just need to give it
Yeah.
some time. Give it 1 or 2 winters to settle. So normally by your fifth or sixth season, sort of a year and a half, maybe 2 years in, you should be seeing the perfect characteristics from it. If it's not doing what you want to
Hmm.
doing it, then come back to me and say, but my review process, I never ever review a rose that hasn't one been on the market for more than a year. So for instance, when David Austin, Peter Beals or
Hmm.
Harkness send me a brand new variety, I'll give them a first impression. And that plant is fresh out the box. I'll quite often do it as I take it out of the packaging when it's first launched. And that's my first impression, how the rose makes me feel as I look at it for the first time. And I then sit on the plant for at least 12 months. I will never ever review a rose that I haven't had in the ground for 12 months. I want to observe it through all 4 seasons and I want to see what it's doing. And there's only been 2 roses that I've then been still on the fence one. And one of them actually was this year, which was the Emma Bridgewater Rose from David Austin that I had in the ground for just over a year. And I'm still on the fence with that one. It's still showing characteristics which I'm not particularly happy with. But when people say to me, "Oh, your roses are so big, and how do you get them so beautiful for presentation? How are you sort of almost staging it and fixing it?" It's like, no, let's tell you the process behind the camera. And I'm doing 12 months of field trials behind the in my own garden to bring you the review in the first place. So it's quite a lengthy process, and obviously I'm
Yeah.
obviously laying up stock already for 2026. I'm already
Hmm.
putting peonies in the ground, for instance, for
Yeah.
2027 for me to review. So it's a very, very lengthy and long process. It's not particularly easy at all. And I think sometimes people get a little bit carried away and they want instant
Yeah.
gratification. He said, well, you can buy a pot grown plant. I mean, for instance, when I was talking to Brad up at Select Roses, he's supplying stuff in 2 and 4 gallon pots and they're enormous. They're about
Hmm.
5 foot high. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And he's charging,
Yeah.
I don't know, $70, $80 for them. It's like a plant over here that size would be several £100s. I mean, it's just ginormous. But his
Hmm.
growing climate means
Yeah.
that he gets lots of rain in a temperate climate. They grow on and they're massive.
Hmm.
So yeah, lots and
Yeah.
lots of lots and
Yeah.
lots of
That's what
different
we that's
variances.
what we do as well. We do that as well. We take a bare root input
Hmm.
and a 2-year-old bare root, input it into a 5 gallon
Yeah.
specialty pot for California, a very deep pot that can support large root system, and we
Hmm.
grow it on an additional year. And we incur all the cost of that additional growing, but it does give those gardeners that instant gratification, almost.
Yes. Yeah.
Of course, they still have to raise it, and they've got to get it leafed out, and they've got to, it's going to get bigger than how we ship it. But for the people that want that instant gratification, we definitely offer that. It's an incredible program that people really love. Obviously, it's a huge investment for us and a huge investment for the customer. But there are people that they just want a bush that's going to turn right around and be perfect for them. So we try to offer, the bare root, the 1 gallon, the 5 gallon, an array, so that there's all different price points and all different, skill level for different gardeners, that they can pick and choose
A
what is
little
going
a
to
little
work best
bit
for
a
them.
little bit of something for everybody.
Exactly.
I also,
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, you're going to be happy to talk about this. You're moving, is that correct?
We are going to move. Yeah, we
I mean,
are.
your your
We
your
are
home
going
your home is utterly breathtaking. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful.
to.
So,
Thank
have
you.
you found something that is equally breathtaking, or somewhere that you found somewhere that you like to go to, or are you at the beginning of that process at the moment?
So we're sort of at the beginning. We know where we want to go.
Uh-huh.
We are going to go to Connecticut.
Yeah.
We have
That's gonna
we
be
have
that's gonna
pretty
be a
strong
that's gonna be
ties.
a that's gonna be a bumpy ride for you, isn't it? Weather-wise.
It's going to be different. However, my husband went to college in New York City. I
Yeah.
lived in New York and New Jersey for a decade, so we know the weather of the New York area.
Mm-hmm.
My personal aesthetic is very traditional. You've seen my
Yes.
home,
Yeah. It's beautiful.
and we have ties to that area. There are people in our company that live in that area that are essential to like what we do on a day-to-day basis. One of our largest growers is up in that area. So it's a really good and strategic move for Grace Rose Farm. I didn't know this, but apparently there are over 1,200 independent garden centers in the Northeast,
Mm-hmm.
which is more than like the whole rest of the country. People take gardening very, very seriously in New England and New
They do
York.
indeed. Yes.
So
Yeah.
they do. And it's a very, really good strategic move for us. We are going to be launching an independent garden center brand. So we're going to have our own brand of roses in garden centers all over the country. We'll announce that a little sooner when it comes, but I'm going to be traveling to garden centers all over the United States, doing book signings, arranging classes, telling people about our new Grace Rose Farm roses. So it's a really smart move for us to move up there, and it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful part of the country.
It,
My husband loves the seasons. He can't wait to have the 4 seasons again. We don't have that here in Southern California.
yeah.
So it's a little bit of a strategic move for the business with our suppliers and people that work for us. And then it's also, we know what we're expecting because we both lived in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, if I had to pick anywhere, it's just so beautiful there. The
It really
traditional
is. Yeah.
homes, the expanse. Yeah, so we have found a home. We're working on it, but we're open. We're working on options up there. So
Well,
it's exciting.
I
It's
mean,
exciting.
you're probably far too busy to have known, but I had the privilege of going across to talk to the New England Rose Association back at the back end of
Hmm.
2023. I did an in-person talk for them. My husband and I were flying across to New England to Boston to do a leaf peeping tour of New England in the autumn
Oh,
of
beautiful.
2023. And in that move, we worked out that actually virtually all of my international following, either on Instagram and on YouTube, is actually from Australia and mostly from the 5 New England states.
Yep.
We actually went
Yep.
over. We obviously did my talk in Boston. We drove the Kanken Highway several times. We went all the way up to Canada, and we then started looking at homes. And we actually very nearly bought a house in the green foothills of the Berkshires, which is just about 2.5 hours out of New York and
Oh,
about 2.5 hours out of Boston.
beautiful.
And it's just
Gorgeous.
so, just
Yeah.
breathtakingly beautiful, and one of those few places I
Hmm.
think you could stand in the world. And don't get me wrong, I've seen the Californian coast. I've driven all the way from LA, all the way up to Seattle. I've done a large portion of the states, but
Hmm.
I stood very, very much in several places in New England and was just completely bowled over by the size and the scale and the color and the crispness of the air and
Hmm.
the streams and the mountains. And
Hmm.
yes, I mean, our dreams have changed ever so slightly. I'm not going to go into that for why, but there's a political situation in America, which means it's not particularly good for English people to come over and live with you guys at the moment. So we're glad that we're here for now. But yeah, that if one place in the world was singing to me,
Yeah.
I think any one of the New England
It
states
is.
would be easily become home.
It is not a good time to live in America right now. It is not, but it'll get fixed. It will get fixed.
It will get fixed. Yeah,
So
it can't go on forever.
at the next election, it will get fixed. So I don't blame you. Do
No,
not
no.
blame you one bit.
So
Yeah.
I also read on your website that you have a staggering 13 pets. Is that?
I have I have 15 cats and 3 dogs.
Oh wow, that's a very large four-legged family.
It is. I am before anything else, I'm a devoted animal lover. I can imagine my life without my pets. They mean everything to me. So
And how about your daughter? Is she yet got the rose bug?
she does. My daughter doesn't know anything else but living on a rose farm. It's so cute because she just walks out the side door and meanders off onto the property. She doesn't understand what it's like to live in constraints, like in a
Hmm.
neighborhood where you
Yeah.
don't just walk out the door and, so she's been really fortunate. She loves the cats and she loves the roses. She picked roses last night for me, and brought me a little wheelbarrow of dead heads. So it's so cute, but she's just living her best life, and she was such a wonderful addition for Ryan and myself. We adopted her at birth,
Hmm.
and it took us a long time to decide if we wanted to bring a child into our life, and we adopted her when she was born, and it's just been it's only going to be her. There will not be any more, but she's amazing. She's a really bright, sweet, compassionate little girl, and she just turned 5 over the summer.
Oh,
So.
wonderful. So she's at that very independent stage. So she's got plenty of language and she knows her own mind. And she's, as you say, she's gonna
Hmm.
wander off into the property with a wheelbarrow and her little shears, and she's gonna get up into all sorts of mischief,
Yep.
I should imagine. Thinking back to how I was at 5 or 6 years old, because yeah, I mean, well, you lived in a very
Yep.
domestic setting, but I used to put my wellies on. I'd disappear for
Yeah.
ages out into the garden, and not come back.
We're going to recreate that for her in Connecticut. We're going to make sure we have 20 acres now. We don't need 20 acres. It's just too much to maintain. And
Hmm.
under roof, we've got like 20,000 square feet between barns and houses, and it's just too much to keep. We don't need it. So we're going to go down to about 4 acres and just have a house, but we're going to make sure that it's a property where she can just walk out the door and explore and have the time of her life. So we're not going to change any of that for her. We want to make sure that she still feels like she's on this wonderful rose fairy tale property, and she has freedom to run around and enjoy her life. So
Well, very much
that's
like
a, that's a big thing for us.
very
Yeah.
much like your husband Ryan, she's also going to get to experience the seasons as well. So she's going to get to experience frost and snow and spring and a beautiful
Hmm.
New England fall with those beautiful colours as well. So
Yeah.
very, very
Yep. We're
exciting.
looking forward to it. We
And then
just
you've
need
got.
to, firm up everything here in California, and then we can go. So we're looking forward to it.
So how long do you think the process might take you?
I'm not sure. We have some interested parties in our property, and um, we right now are doing some fulfillment from my property. So we're at our one of our partners right now. We're at their nursery, and we're talking about fulfillment and where and how and when and how we're going to pivot fulfillment, so that Ryan and I can move. So
Hmm.
lots of things in play, but all really, really great things. And our business will still operate out of California. So all of our bushes, whether they're bare root or they're potted, are all going to still be California grown. We're still very much remaining that, California business, but we're just making a family move, to give our daughter something new in
Hmm.
life, and to put me in the right location uh, for the business, as far as, strategy for our business.
Yeah,
So
and that's
yeah,
and I suppose
good.
there's no point really. Oh, but that's exactly how we felt when we were trying to move across. We got frustrated that our house in the UK wouldn't sell, and we were just sort of absolutely sort of chomping at the bit to get over. And there was a house that we desperately wanted to buy, which we missed out on. And it's just one of those things that actually, when the universe aligns and everything falls into place, the move will happen. The right property will come, and everything will just sort of go click, click,
Yep.
click, and fall into place, and it will happen. So, but it sounds like you got the right attitude.
Yep.
There's no point forcing it. It will come, and it has to be done in the right way and in a timely fashion, I suppose, is the right way to
Mhm.
say it, isn't
Yeah, I'm not by nature a very patient person, but I'm very much of like impetuous. I want it now. But being a rose grower, you learn to have patience. You
it?
learn that beautiful things take time. And so as I've gotten older, I just say, whatever will be, will be. The right house will be on the market when our house is, closed or near closing, and things will happen the way they're meant to happen. Like, I always believe that. I believe timing works itself out. And when you grow roses for a living and you see the process of what it takes to get roses to end consumers, you just have to develop a lot of patience. You have to
Yeah.
learn patience.
You
So
do it. You do
I'm
indeed.
good. I'm good either way.
So
Hmm.
moving into 2026, is there anything exciting and new that you're going to be showcasing for your customers and that you can tell us a little bit about? Are you launching or are you growing any new varieties that are going to be available to your audience for
Yeah,
2026?
we are. We are so thrilled that we have been awarded exclusives from Mayond and Cortez.
Oh wow,
So,
okay, yeah.
and we're working, yeah, so roses that will never be on the market in the United States except through Grace Rose Farm. So we are patenting them, trademarking them, naming them, and they are varieties that, have been trialed for years and years and years already in the U.S. And so we will own I think it's about six varieties from Mayond and Cortez, which is
Hmm.
an incredible honor. I mean, they don't just hand out rose bushes to anyone, right? So
No.
that's a huge honor. And then we're also working with Christian Bedard, the amazing breeder here in the United States, formerly of Canada. And we're going to be releasing some exclusives of his as well. And so we're very, very excited to have our own branded roses. And that's just and it's a huge honor, and we're so excited that
That,
we're going to be able to do that for
very,
people.
very, very exciting and fits very much within your personal ethos of continuing to bring something different and making sure it's the very, very best. I mean, I'm not familiar with the first breeder there, but I certainly obviously have come across lots of Cordes roses. They're absolutely famed for their disease resistance and their resilience.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm not familiar with the other breeder. Not sure we can get them here in the UK, but yeah, that's very, very exciting indeed. So 2026 is certainly going to be a very, very busy year as far as you're concerned by the sounds of things.
Yeah, yeah, very busy, very busy. We are launching about 750 varieties of roses for our 2026 season, and some more to come. We're also launching companions. So we're working with a grower in the United States, not in California, that grows very highly specialized uh, other plants besides roses,
Hmm.
and the creme de la creme. Only the highest quality roses and very rare things that you can't just find at any garden center. So we'll be launching beautiful companions for roses, like
Wonderful.
lilac and wisteria and different boxwoods and different genre of hydrangea and so many things, so many
Yeah.
things. So we're
So,
really excited about that. And that's because we now have horticulturists working for us. That's something that I never could do on my own because I honestly don't know a lot about other plants besides roses. I
mhm.
admit that. So having these incredible horticulturists with us, we're able to identify plants that go really beautifully with roses and complement roses in the garden. Of course, roses will always be our focus. The center of the core of the business is roses, but most people want to grow other things besides roses, right? So we're going to offer those things for them.
They
So
do.
I'm very, very excited about that.
They do indeed, which is why I mean I went to I'm not going to say where I went, but I went somewhere a couple of years ago to a rose garden, a very famous rose garden, and it was so dull in July. There was just simply just nothing but sticks in this garden, and I thought, well, actually,
Yeah.
my garden at home is not that microclimate of just roses. My garden is a quintessential English cottage garden. It's heavily planted with everything from bulbs to herbaceous perennials and roses and clematis and all of those other things in between. So I came home about 3 years ago and I
Mhm.
created a companion planting series, which I put to Instagram and
Oh.
YouTube. And then this year I added another 30 companion plants to that series again. So there's now 60 plants for people to watch. But again, I strongly believe that again the roses
Mhm.
will always be the heroes and the superstars of my garden. But no superstar or no hero is ever very good unless they've got a supporting cast or a chorus line. And these plants, unfortunately, well, they're not unfortunately, they make up the backbone of my garden, and the planting is very
Yeah.
very heavy. So I had the pleasure in this year in filming another 30 companion planting videos,
Wonderful.
as well as reviewing another 17
That's
peonies. So
amazing.
it was an awful lot of work this year. But again, there's an awful lot of information there for people on my account. So yeah, it's nice to hear that you're giving people another dimension because I think as the more the more you can tempt people with, the bigger the passion grows. And I say to people, people say to me, Ben, how do you plant
Hmm.
a garden for all year round interest? I say, well, the best thing you can possibly do is either log on to your favorite specialist at least every other month or every 6 weeks, or go to
Yeah.
the garden centre or go to the retail centre at least once every 6 weeks, at least twice a season. And if you go twice a season, or if you buy plants twice a season, and you keep doing that for 1 or 2 years, those people will naturally put plants in front of you that are that are
Hmm.
flowering, that look good, that have interest, whether it's berries or hips or flowers or autumn color at that time of year. And
Hmm.
again, if you don't plant your garden too heavily and you keep on adding to it bit by bit over a period of about 2 years, going
Hmm.
every 6 to 8 weeks to the garden centre, you will very naturally end up with a beautifully balanced garden because you've been buying it
Yes.
in little bits. It's the
Yeah.
gardens that people go out
Yeah.
in. You don't have the Easter bank holidays over there, but here in the UK, we have an Easter bank holiday weekend. It's 4 days long. It's a Friday off and a Monday off as well. And people go out to the garden centres because they want to get their gardens all spruced up for the spring and the summer months. And they all go and buy their plants. And then their garden is as dull all the way through May, June, July, August, September because they planted everything that was in flower in April and May and then nothing. And I think if you can find little bits
Yeah.
every 6 to 8 weeks to really inspire you and really capture your interest, even in the depths of winter here
Hmm.
in the UK when it's grey and it's wet and it's dull. There's always something that draws me out into the garden.
Yeah.
There's always something in flower. There's always something looking good. So if you could do that and help people with companion plants with that, that's a really, really good thing.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to living in an area where I can grow more companion plants. I can grow bulbs in
Hmm.
Connecticut here.
Yeah.
Not so much. We don't get cold enough. I can grow peony there. I can't do that here. Roses thrive here, but so many other plants that are whimsical and lend themselves beautifully to roses just don't. It's too warm here
Yes.
for the whole year. So I'm really looking forward to experimenting and trying more things. Hydrangea is another. Like hydrangea struggles here. It's too dry. You have to water hydrangea like 3 times a day to keep them hydrated.
Yeah.
And they just bloom huge in the Northeast. I mean,
And
I was driving around the Northeast 2 weekends ago, and the hydrangea plants are like bigger than cars. They're huge, and they just survive on their own there with rainwater. They don't crisp like they do here. So
no, of
I'm really
course.
looking forward to having a more layered garden
Of course,
throughout the
down in
season. So yeah,
down in Cape Cod, they're absolutely hydrangea crazy, aren't they? The hydrangeas absolutely
yes,
everywhere.
they are. Yeah, they are crazy about their hydrangeas on Long Island, Connecticut, Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. Yeah, they're really, really enthusiastic about their hydrangeas.
Well, I'm really really excited for you and your family and for your business because it sounds like there's some incredibly exciting things happening for you in 2026. Gracie, I want to say a
Well,
huge
thank
thank you for
you.
being so generous with your time and joining me on today's episode of the podcast. It really has been an absolute pleasure talking to you and getting to know you a little bit more. And hopefully, the listeners have really enjoyed your story and getting to know a little bit more about the account as well. So, thank you so much for joining me.
You're so welcome. I really am so touched that you asked me to join you, and I want to definitely keep in touch and continue this friendship.
Yeah,
I love it.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I should be following along on social media, sort of with bated breath and great excitement to see what's next for you.
Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. I'll talk to you again very soon. Take care now. Bye bye.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed catching up with Gracie for the very first time and getting to know her better. There's some really exciting times ahead for her, her family, and of course the business moving forward. You can hear the excitement in her voice as she starts to talk about having a garden more governed by the seasons and layers of companion planting to go with the huge and beautiful collection of roses that I'm assuming she's also going to amass in her new property. I can't thank Gracie enough for being so generous with her time and joining me on today's episode. I have 1 or 2 things to get on with at home now, and having picked all of my chilies and stored all of my tomatoes in the freezer while Mark and I went on our normal annual holiday, it's time to make my world famous red hot chili jam. So I'm off into the kitchen to do some cooking. Join me again next week on episode 5 when I'm going to be joined by a really good friend of mine, Kenny, who operates an account on Instagram called Raybold and Wild. Kenny is actually the director of horticulture in Covent Garden and has what I would classify as being one of the best horticultural jobs in the entire world. Mixing together design, floristry and horticulture, Kenny gets to dabble and play in all of the boxes and colour with all of the crayons in the box. So catch my conversation with him next week. Until then, happy gardening. The Garden the Bend podcast is brought to you proudly in association with Peter Beals Roses, winner of 30 Chelsea Gold medals and proudly creating timeless roses since 1968. Shop online at www.peterbealsroses.com and make sure that you're following along on Instagram and TikTok.